It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is Investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can get a hold of me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. Everything here Monday to Friday, AM/FM radio, you find over at Patreon with all the ads and the commercials cut out. Plus a lot of exclusive content that you won't find on AM/FM radio. Some stuff we just put there exclusively just for Patreon members and supporters, but also to a lot of free stuff. Even if you're not a member, you don't want to become a member, you can go there and check it out. I always put a free document to stuff, whatever's in the news, breaking news. And speaking of breaking news, we have Danno Hanks, Private Investigator Danno Hanks, legendary Private Investigator Danno Hanks, author of the book Hollywood Detective, I Was Tinseltown's Private Eye. And you can go back in our archives on Spreaker.com. I've done 3 previous shows with Danno Hanks, D-A-N-N-O Hanks, H-A-N-K-S. You can also find them on Instagram under Danno Hanks. Always great stuff. Michael Jackson we talked about. Okay, man, forget it. Prince Andrew, nothing. And I wasn't Prince. It was Prince Harry. It was. But this guy's involved in everything. O.J. Simpson, all the stuff that all the audience is into. So, Mr. Danno Hanks, are you there?
Yes, I am. What can I do for you today?
How are you, man?
I'm hanging in there. I'm still vertical above ground.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, before we get started, man, I want you to know anytime you want to come back, you got something you want to tell the audience about, I'm here at your disposal. You have an open invitation anytime you want to come back.
I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you calling and telling me about it, because I know you're all upset about this Epstein stuff. But before we get into that, remind the audience, who is Danno Hanks?
Well, I'm a private investigator. I've been doing it for close to 50 years. I'm just turned 79 last week, July 13th, about 2 weeks ago.
Happy birthday!
And like I say, I've been doing this a long time out of Los Angeles, California, and have done mostly entertainment industry stuff. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of investigations for the tabloid media, both, on TV and the print media for many, many years, because, they pay. That's the reason.
Yeah.
But, in the last week or two, or even last month, I've been watching all the news reports regarding Jeffrey Epstein. And most people don't know who I am as my connection to Jeffrey Epstein, but I'm pretty much the guy that brought Jeffrey Epstein down. And the way that happened was I was working for the British tabloid, the Mail on Sunday, and they asked me to identify and then track down a woman who at the time was only known as Jane Doe 102. Now, there had been a civil lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein, and she had testified about things that had happened to her with other girls, and they never identified who these Jane Does were. There were several. And they wanted to know who Jane Doe 102 was. And that turned out to be Virginia Giuffre, who was, before she was married, she was Virginia Roberts.
Right.
And the way I did that is I went through the transcript of the trial and read her testimony. And in her testimony, they asked her how she met Jeffrey Epstein, and she said, I was the towel girl at Mar-a-Lago in the spa and was approached by his assistant, the woman who's now in the news and testifying, to come to work for Jeffrey Epstein. And when she went to work, she thought, okay, I'm just going to be, doing massages. But then she was sexually assaulted by him and basically turned into a sex slave, along with many other girls who were recruited out of out of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago spa. So that was the information that was the key.
Well, Danno, let me stop you for a second. I'm familiar with Virginia Roberts because her dad, Sky Roberts, was a maintenance director over there at Mar-a-Lago that she was plucked out of.
Yes.
Yeah. But how many other girls were plucked out of Mar-a-Lago too?
Oh, dozens.
Really?
And here's the thing. That statement is what broke it for me, because when she said that she got the job because her father was the head of maintenance department.
Right.
So I called up the Mar-a-Lago maintenance department, and I said, "Can I speak to the boss?" And they said, "He's not here right now." I said, "Well, what's his name? Can I get back to him?" They told me his name was Sky. By the way, Sky Rocket Roberts, which is a very strange name, and not hard to pick out in the crowd. So I did a profile search on him and found out that he had a young daughter, and she had kind of dropped off the face of the earth as far as U.S. databases were concerned. And I started doing wider searches using Virginia Roberts. And back then, before Facebook, there was MySpace. And she had a MySpace page and was constantly talking to her grandmother who lived in California. And the conversations were being posted on her MySpace page. And on that page, she said that she had gotten married in Thailand and had moved with her new husband, to Australia and was living in a small town about an hour north of Sydney, and had opened up a cupcake shop. So I found a local PI in Sydney, and I said, "Can you go to this town and see if there's any cupcake shops there and look for this woman?" Well, there was only one cupcake shop, and Virginia Roberts ran the cupcake shop. So along with the reporter from the Mail on Sunday, we went down to Australia to see if she would talk to us. And once she started talking, she just opened completely up. She had a scrapbook and it had all the pictures, and the now famous picture of her and the prince, along with Giselle. I'm never sure how to pronounce her name.
Ghislaine
Maxwell.
Right.
Anyway, and that picture went viral. I mean, it got reproduced all over the world. And we convinced her to come back to the United States and go before a grand jury and testify in a criminal matter about Jeffrey Epstein. And then he was arrested and prosecuted, and the rest is pretty much history. But during the course of tracking him down, I probably interviewed over 200 people, many of whom are not even named in any list, but they were connected to him and had spent time down at the island. And so I'm surprised that they're not on any government list.
Yeah, Dan, I got a couple of quick questions for you. One is, when you were looking through her scrapbook there you talk about, right? I recall seeing a picture of her on the Staten Island ferry, and she looks to be about 12 years old in that picture. Did you see that picture?
Yeah, and she was very, very young. I think she was only 14 when she was recruited. The thing about the Donald Trump connection, he severed ties with Jeffrey Epstein, but he didn't. He says, "I severed ties because he was a creep." Right. Well, yeah, he was a creep, but that isn't the reason. He severed ties because Jeffrey Epstein was poaching his employees. Any of the young employees that got summer jobs at the Mar-a-Lago, Ghislaine Maxwell would come in and recruit them and tell them, that you'd be working for a private guy as his personal assistant. And then when they got into his house, the whole situation would change, and he would groom them and turn them into sex slaves. And that's the reason. It wasn't because he was, upset with his lifestyle. Now there's no evidence. There's no evidence that he ever did anything when he went down to the island, because many people, many celebrities that got invited had no idea what was going on down there. Because the island was very large, and there was a lot of areas that they didn't go to. There was a private beach down there that a lot of times, it was a nude beach, and not everybody that was invited down the island was involved in nefarious activities, but they are on the flight logs. I got the original flight logs that you see online. I was able to get that flight log book from, I believe, I don't know, it was a house maintenance man or a gardener, but when the police raided the place, he had several books, some were guest books, and one was the flight logs, and he allowed me to take pictures of them. So that's how I got that.
Well, then, Danno, let me ask you about that, because there's a lot of controversy about that. So when we see those flight logs that are published by Nick Bryan, who published the flight logs, is it the exact same pictures that you took that are published?
It appears to be. I don't know, because I released those, and I believe it's possible that the Mail on Sunday may have published those as well, because I was working for them at the time. And we got a lot of stuff through a private investigator down in Florida who was a former Palm Beach Police Department police guy. And for legal reasons, I'm not going to give his name out, but he was in fact stealing stuff out of the evidence room on the case when he was being prosecuted by the state rather than the feds. And he was selling it to us. And those transactions were always by cash. He would not take any wire transfers or checks. We had to meet with him in Florida and give him cash for the documents. And the money from the Mail on Sunday back then was flowing pretty heavily. I would imagine they spent close to $250,000 on this story, and we were on it for 18 months. And they allowed me to travel wherever I needed to travel and interview whoever I wanted to interview in order to track this all down. So I probably know more about Mr. Epstein than anybody else, including the feds.
I would agree, because years ago you sent me a Google Drive with a ton of stuff on there. You mentioned that you tracked down 200 masseuses. You sent me that list, and it wasn't just a list of names. You had their pictures and you had their current occupations. And I know that kind of stuff is not out there. So what I did, that process was a very tedious process. When I get a name, I'd run the name through proprietary databases. I don't know whether your audience knows what TLO and IDI are, but those are the databases used by law enforcement, private investigators, attorneys, etc., to track people down. I would track them down through that, and then when I had them identified, I would search social media to see if I could find images of them as well. Mm-hmm. And the one thing about those databases is they kick out what they're currently doing, current employment. Have they gotten married? Have they moved someplace? And I was able to track all those down, and I started creating my own file
where I would add the pictures that you've seen. And I've been working on more pictures and trying to update the file to find out where they are today. Because I did this 15 years ago, and some of these people have passed away.
Yeah.
Everybody's now conspiracy theorists who are saying Virginia Giuffre didn't commit suicide; she was murdered. No, she committed suicide. I'm convinced of it, and she was very depressed. She had a couple of children, and her divorce was going through, and her marriage had totally fallen apart. And she had also been in a car accident, and she was just very, very depressed.
Yeah, and she was about to plead guilty, too, to violating a restraining order, and she had a lawsuit against her as well.
Yeah,
yes.
All those things against her. And she was a very damaged person.
Yep.
And all of it started with, what happened to her with Epstein. It amazes me that she lasted as long as she did. And her family is just outraged by the fact that Maxwell may get her conditions changed, or she may get a pardon. She's already been transferred to a minimum level institution in Texas, which under Bureau of Prisons rules, she doesn't qualify for. So
really?
Oh, yeah. So somebody in the last couple of days put some pressure on and got her transferred, and the only people that can do that are people out of the Justice Department.
Danno, why wouldn't she qualify? She doesn't have any previous felonies, and she doesn't have any violations while she's in there.
Because she's a sex offender.
Sex offender, right.
It's a sex offender. The Bureau of Prisons likes to lump all the sex offenders into certain institutions. For all of the men, they send them to Latuna prison in Texas, and that prison houses 90% sex offenders, mostly pedophiles, and only 10% of regular inmates. And those inmates are minimum custody inmates that are getting ready to be released or doing a very short term, like they've been sentenced to 8 months or something like that. Right. And the reason they have only short-timers there that are regular ones is you're not going to risk your parole by assaulting a pedophile. But nobody talks to pedophiles. They get the silent treatment from the regular inmates. And sadly enough, they're housed together, and you have to spend time with them, and their conversations are disgusting. Yeah,
Danno, let's back up a little bit here. Because back to that Google Drive that you sent me. By the way, some of that stuff is still password protected. I keep reminding you to help me to give me authorization to get into that Google Drive. I don't have access to all of it.
Well, I can send you stuff. I didn't know that I put a password.
I know. Well, I reminded you a couple of times. I'll do it on the air too. But the 200 pictures and names and occupations you sent me, I think a lot of people would be surprised to see that there's some men on there, right? What do you make of that?
Oh, well, those are clients. A lot of those are clients, or there were names. I would talk to a girl and she'd tell me about the guy. So I'd run the guy and track him down.
Well, even the ones I'm thinking of, they were listed as masseuses, though. Foot massage, I think it was.
Oh, he did have some male masseuses. He did have some. Maybe he swung both ways. I don't know.
Well, he was with Wexner, who seems to be swinging both ways, Well, let me ask you a question now. In your research, did you find out anything? You hear these stories from Maria Farmer about Ivana Trump, Trump's first wife, who's now deceased. that she was friends with Maxwell and that they hung out together. Did you come up with anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to his first marriage. I mean, he knew him for a long, long time, and it's true that back then, nobody knew what he was up to. They knew, they would see him with, younger girls hanging around, and they never put two and two together. They should. I mean, when you go someplace and you see a guy that's constantly hanging out with, younger people.
Yeah.
And they're like 40 years old and they're hanging out with 12-year-olds. They're either a kindergarten teacher or they're a pedophile.
Now, Danno, it's my understanding that when Virginia Roberts, when she settled with Epstein in that first case, that the settlement was $500,000. Do you have that figure too?
Well, she told me the figure, yeah, but she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So I didn't want to harm her income, so I never published that or never told anybody that.
Well, let me ask you this, Danno, because you're around a long time, and PI is one of the things we do is we work with attorneys and we put together these lawsuits, right? That's a very steady work. That's one of the things you want to do. You want to put together lawsuits. Now, wouldn't it be legal malpractice for Brad Edwards not to also sue Mar-a-Lago and also sue Trump? It's since she was procured while working there by members of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, he could claim that he didn't know, and as soon as he did know, he kicked him out of the club. So that he could claim that he did his due diligence.
Right.
But there's an old phrase, and you're probably familiar with it. In that working for lawyers, there's a phrase that says they knew or they had a duty to know.
Right.
And I think he had a duty to know. But here's the thing, and this goes back to his lawsuits for his corporations in New York City. Unfortunately, these people that are big businessmen, major corporations, they delegate authority. And even though the buck is supposed to stop with them, it doesn't. Somebody comes in, hands them a piece of paper, they sign it, they don't even read it, and they rely on the people below them to, not do anything shady. But they do, I mean, the thing in New York that he got nailed for was he was taking out loans and inflating the actual value of his properties, which that's a federal offense. I don't know why he hasn't been prosecuted federally, other than the fact that he's the president of the United States, and he owns the Justice Department. But Danno,
back to this Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago has insurance. She was employed by Mar-a-Lago. She came in contact with her abusers at Mar-a-Lago. They were members of Mar-a-Lago. How could you not sue Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, her attorneys were not the best in the world.
But Danno, my question is, okay, we see that Sky Roberts retired shortly after to go live on a horse ranch, and we see Donald Trump's method of paying off Stormy Daniels. They took out the home equity loan with Michael Cohen, and they pay him back his attorney's fees. Could it be possible that they use some kind of creative settlement methods?
Oh, it's very possible, but we have no evidence of that, but it's very possible. A lot of these things are done, it's kind of like in the old days when you wanted to recruit a football player or a basketball player for a particular university. before it was legal. Now it's legal to actually pay the athlete. But before it was legal, they'd say they'd pay off the mortgage on their mother's house.
Right.
You know, or they'd lease a car in the mother's name and the kid would be driving it. You know, and so that's the same way they're doing business here. Is they're saying, "Oh, would you like a nice horse ranch?"
Yeah, right. How do you retire from the maintenance department? Even the king of the maintenance, the top guy at maintenance. How do you retire on a horse farm? Come on. But let me ask you this. Danno Hanks, you sent me a text message one time saying that you killed all the stories about Donald Trump for AMI. Do you have any stories you can share with us?
I've over the years, because I was working for American media at the time. That was before I went to working for the British, and you know, I wasn't politically involved. You know, I should have been more involved in politics because I'm a very liberal guy. And I didn't think of Donald Trump as a guy that was, you know, anybody you should have to worry about. But they wanted him to become president, and they didn't want any story coming out that could damage his reputation. Of course, he was able to do that pretty good on his own, you know, like getting caught on a hot mic.
Yeah.
But there was a story that came out that there may be a baby mama out there, you know, and that was being peddled to the Inquirer by the doorman at his penthouse in New York City. Had overheard conversations, and he was I think his name was Dino. And he was saying, you know, there was this baby mom out there, and they wanted to kill the story. Well, they killed the story, but during my investigation, I tracked down the so-called baby mama, and Trump wasn't the daddy.
Oh, really?
He ended up marrying the daddy. They live happily in New Jersey. She was very hot looking. She was one of Trump's personal assistants. But he may have had sex with her, but he wasn't the father of her child. So a lot of stories they killed them just because there was a possibility, you know, that something negative could be said about him. A lot of the Hollywood attorneys that I've worked for over the years, that's their job. It's their sole job with their clients is to keep them out of the tabloids. Mm. Because what will happen is a tabloid will have to vet the story. They want to clear it with their lawyers and make sure that the story will fly and that they won't get sued. So they'll end up calling the lawyers for the particular star. And those lawyers often work with me. And they'll say, here's our story. If you want to dispute it, prove it isn't true. They want to prove a negative. And many times they can't do that. I'll do an investigation and it'll turn out it's true. And then they'll say, what do you want in exchange for not running that story? Mm. And they'll trade off another client. They'll sell out a lesser client and say, you can publish this story. So that's been going on for years. I mean, it's just the way the tabloids are, the way they operate. And that's not just the U.S. tabloids. It's tabloids all over the world. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here now. I'm listening. I'm at the edge of my seat. Yeah. So anything else that you might know about Trump that you want to share with the audience?
Well, I'd like to get a pardon myself.
Yeah.
You know, and the audience may or may not know. I ended up going to prison about 5-6 years ago over something that was absolutely not my fault. But I got prosecuted because a zealous young prosecutor figured he put a feather in his hat by prosecuting a Hollywood private investigator.
Yeah.
And I discovered later on that between the time I entered a plea just to make the case go away where I would get probation and the time I actually got sentenced, the prosecutor in the case was changed to one appointed by Trump, who knew I had a thick file on him. And suddenly, you know, mysteriously my sentence gets changed to nothing, or from nothing to 16 months. And it wasn't so much doing the time, it was that people that might want to interview me about Trump might not take stock in a guy who's sitting in prison.
Right.
And then one day I'm in prison. I get a call. A officer comes to my cell and says, "The warden wants to see you." And nobody ever gets to see the warden.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only time he's around is you see him in the chow hall. You know, he's available if you want to walk up to him, but nobody gets a private meeting with the warden. So it was very unusual. I get in his office, and he says, "Who are you?" And I said, "Don't you know I'm in your prison?" You know. And he says, "Well, I keep getting these calls, one from journalists wanting to interview you, and today I just got a call from Ronan Farrow, and I've been denying all the interviews because it's against our policy. But just who are you?" And I say to him, I said, "I was an investigator for the tabloids, and I have a huge, thick file on our lovely president. And so you will continue getting requests for interviews." Well, through a back channel source, I got Ronan Farrow put on my guest list and for telephone calls and for that sort of thing. And he started interviewing me over the phone for his book, Catch and Kill. And that's what he wanted to talk to me about, was basically the policy of the tabloids to catch and kill, to buy a story and then never publish it. And then after I got out of prison, he flew out here and spent a couple of days with me to finalize the book search, to go through my hard drive. He'd give me a name and said, did you ever search this person? And I'd look it up and, oh, yeah, I did that. So he finally names me as his source on like page 400 of the book. But Catch and Kill was a lot about what I did for the tabloids.
Yeah, he talks about one of my cases, but he doesn't mention me. I got less billing than you, Danno.
Yeah, I got 1 cent of billing.
That's better than I got. What about?
He doesn't tend to give credit to anybody.
Oh, really?
Or basically just protecting his sources. But we had lunch together and we did a selfie down at Vivian's Cafe in here in North Hollywood. But he hasn't gotten back to me. I've tried to call him a couple of times. It only swings one way with him. if he wants something, he'll reach out to you, but he doesn't respond when you need something. So,
by the way, there's a much better book on that topic of catch and kill called The Fixers, Bottom Feeders, Crooked Lawyers, Gossip Mongers, and Porn Stars Who Created the 45th President, by Joe Palazzolo and Michael Rothfield. You can check that one out. Much better than that. It's all about the Stormy Daniels case, all the people I know, and it even later on, what's his name? Costello was holding the book up in front of the grand jury when he's testifying against Michael Cohen. He's doing a press conference holding up the book with the behind-the-scenes stuff about Michael Cohen. Did you... Go ahead.
Did you ever watch the TV series Ray Donovan?
No, I didn't. I don't even know what channel it's on. I never really got into it. Yeah.
I think he was on Paramount Plus or HBO or something like that. But anyway, the creator of that show was Ann Biederman, who created a lot of pretty good shows. And just before that show was developed, I was at a party at George Gallo's house. George Gallo was the movie director for probably half a dozen big titles. Bad Boys, he created Bad Boys. He did Midnight Run. And most recently, a movie with Bob De Niro called The Comeback Trail, that I am in, by the way.
I remember, that's right.
I got a small part in the movie. But I was at a party at his house, and Ann Biederman was sitting in a little group with us, and she was just questioning me about what I did, because she considered me a Hollywood fixer. And the next thing I know, there's this TV series called Ray Donovan about a Hollywood fixer. So, it doesn't take much math to put two and two together.
Well, Danno, you were telling me off the air that Mark Wahlberg is working on a project right now. That's about you too?
Yeah, he started doing an investigation into the guy that I went to prison for. There's a guy that I did a bunch of background checks for.
Right.
He called me up one day and said, out of the blue, I didn't know the guy. He said, do you do background checks and locates? And I go, yeah, but I need to know why. So he tells me, well, I'm a general contractor, and I've had a lot of people that have skipped out on work and shoddy work, and I need to sue them and locate them. Can you do that for me? And I said, yeah. Turned out that he had a general contractor's license, but had never done a stitch of contracting in his life. He was using his contracting company to launder drug money. He was selling cocaine and heroin all over the world, and had never, ever been caught or arrested once. And he was not on law enforcement's radar. Mm-hmm. And so I looked him up. Yeah, general contractor. His website showed the contracting company, and I had no idea. I mean, unless they're in a database for criminal activity, there's no way for me to predict what they're going to do in the future, or what they've done that they haven't been caught for yet. So, I was running all these background checks, when in fact why he was having me run them was he was trying to locate people that owed him money for drugs. And that's how I ended up going to prison. Should have never happened, but, it did.
The irony of that one is, if he had a contractor's license and a business license and a corporation, he could have gone to TLO, he could have gone to Locate Plus, he could have gone to those places and got his own account instead of, listen, I need to verify. He could have got, that's just amazing.
Years ago, in the Michael Jackson case, when Anthony Pelicano went to jail, he went to jail for using two Beverly Hills cops to run backgrounds for him.
Right.
When he could have legally done it through TLO or IDI himself, because he had a PI license.
Right.
So sometimes, you should have been prosecuted for felony stupidity.
But in general, though, PIs do get a hard time, especially if you weren't a former cop. If you're not a retired cop with a PI license, you do get a lot of grief from prosecutors and stuff like that. They like to come after PIs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they have a different processing for California, at least.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same way in other states. That if you're retired law enforcement, the rules are different for you in obtaining a PI license. It's a much quicker process. If you're not, it takes a while to go through the process of being a background check on yourself, being fingerprinted, being cleared to
education, employment, education. Where the expression is your badge is your PI license. You can get your PI license with your badge. It's that easy. Let's back up here a bit, though. Back to the tabloids and Trump. Did you ever hear the name John Tino?
Tino.
An organized crime guy in Times Square?
It doesn't sound familiar to me, but...
He claims that he provided porn stars through massage parlors for Trump.
It's quite possible. Most of the out here, most of the massage parlors and prostitutes are porn stars.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's part of the selling point. Guys would say, they call up the madam or John, and they ask for a specific porn star, and of course that's more expensive because they figure that they're fulfilling a more expensive fantasy or whatever.
Right.
I have a couple of friends that are madams out here, and it never ceases to amaze me what somebody's sexual fetish is.
But that reminds me, isn't there a famous story about Danno Hanks and Heidi Fleiss?
That's absolutely true. What
is it, Danno?
Heidi Fleiss was being investigated by me for the television tabloid show Hard Copy. And I had her under surveillance and got to know who her friends were. And during the course of that, I ran across her ex-boyfriend, a guy by the name of Yvonne Naj, who had been a former television producer. He produced the TV series Starsky and Hutch,
right?
Which was a pretty successful series. But she was a madam, and he decided to become a pimp and wanted to steal her clients. So he approached me and offered me money to tap her phones so that he could find out who her clients were. And so, that time I was hurting for cash, and I didn't have a PI license at the time. I was working for Hard Copy, so I took on the job, and believe it or not, he wrote me a check. I still have a scan of the check. He wrote me a check for the wiretap, and on the note at the bottom it says wiretap.
Oh, wow, really?
Who's so stupid as to write a note with the memo being for wiretap? But anyway, I would tap their phones, and I would, every day I'd go to the tap location, pick up the cassettes.
Yeah, back in those days, you used to have to go change the tape every few hours, and then go back. And then 24 hours slow recorders, you have to change the tape.
Well, these were voice activated, so
right.
You could get like 8 hours of conversations on 2 hours of tape, and because it would only record when the phone was off hook. Well, I'm usually just would deliver the tapes and not listen to them. But one day I got bored, and I decided to listen to the tapes, and I was just blown away by all the celebrity names. One of them being Robert Evans, who at the time was the head of Paramount Studios. He has produced The Godfather, greenlit The Godfather, and so I made copies of those conversations, and called Heidi up and asked her if she'd like to buy her wiretap tapes from me. And she was quite upset about it. You know, I make a buck back in those days.
Yeah, I recently ran across a photograph of Donald Trump with Robert Evans.
Robert. Maybe Donald Trump's not a pervert, but Robert Evans was a pervert. He was into underage girls.
Yeah,
and he would have Heidi pick up teenage street prostitutes and groom them into high-dollar call girls, but they were still like only 14 years old. But they were runaways working the streets of Hollywood. And there's conversations on my tapes of Robert Evans asking her how it was coming on with the little girl. You know, he thought of himself as some sort of Pygmalion situation. You know, we're going to take this street urchin and turn her into a high-priced call girl.
Mm.
I keep getting an incoming call, and I'm sending it to voicemail. That's the situation with.
Danno, there's a connection between Evans and Epstein. Did you know that?
Oh, with Heidi?
Oh, no, with Robert Evans and Jeffrey Epstein and Woody Allen and Carlos Castanedas. Did you know this?
I have no idea. I have no doubt about that at all.
Well, get this. The young woman who was the basis of the young girl, the Mariel Hemingway character in Manhattan, who dated Woody Allen. She was a model. She dated, her name was, I forget, Evangelista. The word Evangelista is in the name. And she dated Woody Allen as a high school kid. She went to work for Jeffrey Epstein as an assistant, and she lived with Robert Evans. I don't know what the conditions were there. I spoke to her.
I have no doubt about that. Robert Evans, he got wind that Hard Copy was investigating, and we were on the Paramount lot.
Right. And
the lawyers showed up there at the show and went, "There will be no further investigations into Heidi Fleiss." You know, they were protecting her because they knew it was going to come back to him.
Right.
And so we need all your tapes. We need everything. I didn't give them all my tapes, and I didn't give them all my files, but I gave them enough to make them think we were going to shut it down. And then the producer for Hard Copy came to me privately and said, "Look, I'll pay you out of my own pocket. I want you to continue your investigation into Heidi Fleiss and Bob Evans." And he wanted it so he would have an ace in the hole when going to renegotiate his contract. So everybody's got a deal.
Did Charlie Sheen come across your tapes there?
Oh, yeah, he did. In fact, I have somewhere in my files, I have a copy of a canceled check that Charlie wrote to Heidi. And you know what? Charlie admitted, he said, "Look, I pay for girls, but I don't pay for them because I can get any woman I want." He says, "I pay to have them go away when I'm finished with them."
Yeah, I don't know how convinced I am of that, to be honest with you. But let me ask you this: did the name Denise Richards ever come up there in her relationship with Mr. Sheen?
Well, only just.
That's his wife.
I don't know whether he was married or just a girlfriend.
Yeah.
But yeah, her name came up, but not in connection with any prostitution or anything.
Hey, what do you make of this business with Heidi Fleiss? That now she's an owner and manager of some kind of private airstrip. I think it's in Nevada. Are you familiar with this?
Well, she has land that she owns out in a small town outside of Vegas called Pahrump.
Yeah.
And I believe there is an airstrip out there. Yeah, so I mean, she may be leasing that out for some, but I think she moved to the Midwest somewhere. I don't, I haven't checked in on her lately.
Yeah, I actually ran into her one time, because I lived in Nevada myself in Henderson, and she had a little doggy daycare business, and I ran into her one time at Home Depot. But my understanding is that right after Dennis Hoff died, that she took off out of Nevada altogether, hightailed it out of there.
Yeah, there was a fire that broke out at her place,
right,
and her birds were all killed. She had a lot of parrots,
right,
and they were all killed. She was a very much an animal person. I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about Heidi, even though she has bad things to say about me.
Oh no,
but, she's actually kind of a genius.
Yeah.
She was. A lot of people don't know this about her, but when she was a teenager, she was the West Coast chess champion for the team division for the entire West Coast. And very, very, very intelligent. She had a very high IQ. And I just didn't use it the way she could have used it, because she probably would have made more money doing something legitimate than she was doing.
Dan, we're getting toward the end here, but The Hollywood Detective, I was Tinseltown's private eye. I had you on to talk about this book one time, but is there anything you want to remind us about the book that you're proud of?
I'm glad it's finally out there. I wish they had embellished a few things, but it's on the cover it does say a mostly true story.
Does it?
I told a story once in a bar that I hang out, and there was a girl sitting at the bar that was from Texas. And she was listening to the story, and at the end of the story, the guy said, "Is that true?" And she said to him, in Texas, it's considered impolite to ask if a story is true. The only thing that should concern you is, were you entertained by it? And I hope your audience has been entertained by our story today.
Oh, I can guarantee you, Danno, I get more emails about you than probably another 80% of our guests here. People love the past episodes. Danno, real quick, I just interviewed recently Vincent F. Amen, who worked for Michael Jackson and he was friends with Frank Cascio. Do you have any information about that story?
Well, I understand the Cassio's filing some lawsuit.
Yeah.
I do have a Casio file. Maybe I should send it to you. Those investigations I was doing when Diane Dimond was writing her book on Jackson called "Be Careful Who You Love."
Right.
And all the kids that were hanging out at the Jackson Ranch I tracked them down and did interviews with them. I can probably send you my files on that. Maybe that'll be another episode on your podcast.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. Hey, by the way, did you know that when I had Vincent F. Amen on the show, he said that Frank Cascio had Jeffrey Epstein's cell phone number in his cell phone?
I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah.
Some of these young boys later on got to be their own pimps.
Yep.
They didn't object to what was going on in their lives. When I went out, I've got a video of me serving Michael Jackson a subpoena, and at the gates of Neverland. And when I went out there, I discovered something that I don't know why nobody's ever mentioned it. But when he decided to build Neverland, the plot of land that he picked out is directly across the street from a grade school.
Really?
Yes, it overlooks the exercise yard or the the yard of a preteen school.
Really?
You know, yeah. You should go on Google Maps and look at an aerial shot of Neverland and see what's across the street.
Vincent F. Amen mentioned that Chris Tucker would spend the night there quite a bit, and he has an Epstein connection too as well. Did you run across him in your investigation?
Yeah, I would have to look through my files and do a name search, but I wouldn't doubt that. In fact, let me do a name search.
Alive, yeah. By the way, Danno Hanks, you got to understand, he's not just doing a Google search. This guy has the resources beyond anybody I've ever met. I contact this guy. Hey, Danno, I need to know how much this guy's mortgage is. And 15 minutes later, he's back with the info. Or I ask him about an adoption investigation. He spends 20 minutes on the phone teaching me how to do it the correct way. So this is golden years of investigative expertise.
What's the last thing you're looking for?
I think we're talking about Chris Tucker, right? Was that it?
Tucker.
Yeah.
Let me look at him. I do not have him in my files.
Gotcha. Okay, well, listen, we got to go anyway. And what I'm going to do, as soon as we hang up here, I'm going to text you my email address, my freshest email address. And if you can get me as many files as you want to send me, Danno, I will sit here and spend the rest of the night.
What I'll do is I'm going to send you a screenshot, or several screenshots of what I have, but they're so large that they have to go on a drive.
Right.
So maybe what I can do is put them on a USB drive and mail them to you.
Okay.
An actual drive, because it's my file is like 2-3 gigabytes.
I remember you telling me that. So we'll definitely put it to good use.
Sometimes even Google Drive doesn't work well.
Yeah, shine some light on this topic.
Screenshots.
Danno Hanks, once again, thank you so much. You have an open invitation anytime. People, check out this book by Danno Hanks called Hollywood Detective. I was Tinseltown's Private Eye, Prince Harry's War. Book number 3 is the one you can find on Amazon. You pick that up right away. Danno Hanks, thank you so much, man.
Take it easy, buddy.
Good night, sir. Good night.